CITYPlus 城市向前行早班节目城市话题，我是 Chasie 新颖，
我是志峰。
对，今天呢，我们要访问一名非常重量级的嘉宾啊，相信听众朋友们呢都对他不陌生。那他本身呢和马来西亚是同龄哦，今年64岁，就是前首相马哈迪的女儿 Datin Paduka Marina Mahathir。那他最近啊，在11月24号就推出了一本新书，叫做《苹果与树：生为马哈迪医生的女儿 The Apple and the Tree: Life as Dr. Mahathir's Daughter》。那今天呢，我们就邀请他本人来到节目，谈一谈他和父亲大马政治、公民社会、两性和女权、伊斯兰化和阿拉伯化等的课题。
Okay, welcome Datin Paduka on CITYPlus and thank you for accepting our interview. This is the first time we have you on our show. Thank you for coming to our studio. Congratulations on your new book titled The Apple and the Tree. Frankly speaking, I haven't finished reading all the 300 pages book, but I have read some of the reviews written by journalists and others. So the feedback are quite mixed, thumbs up, and also there are some criticism. To a certain extent, accusing you for clearing your father's name. Okay, this one we will touch on later. Let's begin with our conversation by the first question. Can you start by talking about when did you want to write this book and how long have you been working on this? What inspired you to write?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me this morning. Yes, it is my first time on a Chinese language radio station, so it's kind of interesting to be on it. When did I write this book? Actually, 2018, 2019, I went to do a course in creative writing. I went to do my master's. And so after that, I thought that, the purpose of doing that was to learn how to write a book from start to finish, because my previous books were all compilations of my columns. So I was used to writing very short pieces, 800 words, 1,200 words, that's all. And I really was interested to learn how to write really long pieces. So that's why I went to the course. And while I was there, I started writing bits. And they always say write about what you know, and what I know is family, so I started writing bits and pieces. And then when I came back, I kept on doing it, just writing for myself really, and wondering whether any of this will ever get published. And then by chance, about October 2020, it was, the publisher Penguin contacted me and said, could you write a book for us? And we want you to write about life as your father's daughter. And I thought, okay, so since I already had bits and pieces that I was already writing, I could just expand on it. So the actual writing, the manuscript for this book took me about 5 months. But 5 months of very, very solid work,
You lock yourself into the room and then
yeah,
morning.
pretty much like that. So it didn't physically take me very long. But I had the material already, and since it's a memoir, I didn't have to go out and interview people or anything like that. I just checked with a few people whether the dates and things were correct. And that's it. Yeah.
Okay, why did you choose the analogy of apple and the tree? Because my personal first impression is, wow, is it about Isaac Newton discovered the law of gravitation or the fall of apples? So what makes you choose this title?
Well, I write in the prologue,
Yeah.
which is the very first thing, that my younger daughter, when she's being a bit cheeky or I'm a bit annoyed with her, I scold her, and she always turns around and just says apple tree, because it comes from the English saying the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So basically she's saying that I'm like this because of you. It's your fault.
Same DNA.
Same DNA. So then I thought, okay, that's kind of an interesting. It's a very different title from most memoirs, and it catches people's eyes. So yeah, why not?
Okay, so what is the difference of this book, The Apple and the Tree: Life as Dr. Mahathir's Daughter, from those you have previously published, such as In Liberal Doses, 50 Days, Rantings by MM? So can you tell us about this?
Well, in the first place, those were compilations of my column that I've been writing in the Star for the past 30 years or something. So I have 3 books like that. This one is written, longer. It's 300 pages, and it is one book and not a bunch of essays. Although I have to confess that I wrote it as single essays, and then I put it in chronological order in the timeline. And I had an editor. The publisher gave me a structural editor who made me join them up so that it flowed better. So then it flows better like a single book, rather than otherwise you'll be reading lots of short stories, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's the main difference, in that this is 112,000 words, and those were, you know 800 to 1,200 word essays. Yeah.
What ideas did you keep in mind while writing this book? Did everyone around you actually know when you were writing this book? And what is the biggest feeling after you finishing the book?
Well, the idea was, at first it was really hard to get a real focus on what I want to write about. But I did think that the main question was, a lot of people will ask me from years ago. They always ask me, what is it like to be Dr. M's daughter? And people kept asking me this and asking me this and asking me this. And it's very hard to explain in a short sentence. And also, when I was talking to the publisher, I asked her, who's the main character in this book?
Yeah.
And she said, you. So
Mm.
that helped me a lot because it helped me focus. So it's about me and my relationship with my father primarily, but also with other people in my life. And so I wrote it like that. And it goes, if you read it from start to finish, you'll see that it does go back and forth, because around certain themes and things like that. So yeah, I didn't tell anyone. Certainly didn't tell any of my family. I told them I was writing a book, but none of them saw the manuscript at all.
Did they
So
ask what are you writing about?
no, they didn't ask. When I told them on the family chat group, there was utter silence. Nobody asked. So when people say the Mahathir family is rewriting history, it's not true at all, because none of them saw it at all. None of them had any input. The most I would ask was, what was that the car that we had when we were young?
Oh.
I'll ask my brothers that because they'll remember that.
Yeah.
And things like that. Or I'll ask my dad about his sister's full names and who they were met. Details, historical details like that. That's all. But none of them read it at all. Not even my husband. I didn't allow anyone to read it. I had friends who read particular chapters so that they could check again on facts, but virtually nobody read the entire thing from start to
So
finish.
when did Dr. M knew about the book?
He knew a while ago, but
Did
he
he
did.
finish all the reading?
Huh?
Did he finish all the reading?
No, as far as I know, no. He read a little bit about the childhood bit, and of course he said, "I don't remember that. I don't remember that." I say, "Wow, you wouldn't." But as far as I don't know, because he has so many, people keep sending him books, and he gets interested in different things.
But this one is come from his own daughter.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. I was like, oh, okay, well, never mind.
Any feedback? Any feedback from your dad after the launch of the books?
No, like I said, he only read the first few chapters, the childhood bits, and some of. There are some significant events that I remember to this day. If you read it, you will know which ones. And he said, "Oh, I don't remember that." He said, "Well, you would not remember that." Yes, but I do.
So after almost 2 weeks of the book being launched at November 23, what was the reaction of people around you when you published the book? Did you get positive feedback or negative or backfire? So some harsh criticism accusing you for clearing your father's name, rewrite history. So what is your response? Do you feel kecil hati, sad, or
I'm just amused
Mm,
because those people, they hadn't read the book. And I know they're not going to go and read the
mm,
book. In fact, before the book was out, I did a slow release of the cover on my Facebook. And some people say, I'm not interested. Okay, fine. That's okay. Uh, so, I mean, a lot of people, there are people who are already biased and prejudiced. So then they decided for themselves what the book is about. Whereas if they read it, I mean, I talk about delivering my baby for God's sake. I mean,
Wow.
mm,
that's a fact. Okay. So that's not rewriting
mm,
history. She was born
mm,
and she was born in Japan.
mm,
And that was the story I wanted to say. But um, I've done several readings and book signings in various bookstores and various events. And the reception has been very warm. It's been really nice, and I've been able to talk about what I felt writing this book, and the people who read it have had some really significant questions. Like I have a chapter called "Me, the Imposter," and how I feel I have imposter syndrome, and so a lot of people have asked me, how could I possibly feel like
mm.
that when they see me doing so many things?
Yeah.
So as I told my dad, the star of this book is me, not you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people are judging it. And by the way, I don't feel I ever have to explain my dad. He can do it himself. And he's got a book coming out soon, which I'm sure people will
Yeah.
also attack. No, this book is about me and how I feel about things and what I saw and what I heard, and especially the later chapters, the more contemporary ones, is about what I saw because I was there. So unless you were there too and you have
Mm,
a different interpretation of what you saw
mm.
and you heard, then fine. But I think, I think there's space for all sorts of different points of view. And if you disagree, then you go write your own book lah.
So you are trying to say that these people are judging the book by its own cover.
Exactly. They're just completely, but I mean, there are some people who are triggered,
Mm.
when I put a picture of my dad from the book cover on my Facebook, wow, some people just, and I, I say, wow, you're so easily triggered. Just a picture will set you off. There's something wrong with them and not me.
Maybe they have very strong feeling towards your dad.
Yeah.
Well, obviously they do,
Mm,
but what is it based on? I don't know. It's based on not really knowing much, I think. Or it's a particular interpretation, I guess. I have no idea, but it's their problem, it's not mine.
Okay. Your book comprises of 5 parts: the beginning, the middle, the sabbatical, the return, and the end. So I believe all 5 chapters are very important. If I have limited time, which are the must read or first read chapter that you strongly recommend? Because most significant and more important parts of your book, which part is the most recommended?
Well, I think all of it is important and recommended. I would rather people read it from start to finish. Most people have told me that they love the childhood bit. They
Okay.
they really like my descriptions of our childhood, because a lot of people don't understand that when my dad became PM, I was already 24 years old.
Mm,
Mm.
So I did not grow up as the PM's daughter. I was an adult. And so it's a very different thing. People think, are you okay lah? Your life so nice lah. From young, you were, brought up in Sri Padana, but I
mm,
wasn't. We grew up as an ordinary family in Alostar.
mm,
And that's not rewriting history. That's just history,
mhm.
Uh, so, I mean, my friends, my old schoolmates from my school in Alostar, they read it and they loved it because they recognized so much of it. and so has other people who didn't grow up with me. So I think those are the nicest chapters. And I think that explains a lot from if you read it from the beginning. I know everyone wants to rush to the
Fourth and fifth.
later one, or
Yes,
the
me
lazy
too.
one,
Yeah.
but they're judging that from you know it there's no background
Because
to
for
that.
because for me personal, part 4 and part 5 is very close to us. It just happened
Sure.
like a few years ago, so we can link the situation in what you write. So this is the feeling that I get.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess people will read different things from it. But I think they will miss a lot if they don't read it from the start. Um, you know, I went to do a creative writing course, and I'm interested in writing, and I really would like to be judged on the writing. And and I find that in Malaysia, nobody really reviews books. They review the author and not the book. So they're judging by the author and not the book, which is kind of disappointing for me. Uh, but people who read it yesterday, I was interviewed by a Singaporean radio station, and they said it reads like a novel. And to me, that's a real praise, because that's what I like. That's creative nonfiction. Um, and other people here too have said, you're very descriptive, and to me, that's the sort of book I want to read, a descriptive book. I'm not interested in people who are just giving me hard facts. This is how the corporate world operates. This I want to know about your background. I want to know how you felt when a particular thing happens, and that's what I'm trying to convey.
Yeah, because 3 weeks ago we have opportunity interview Tan Sri Nazir Razak with his book What's in a Name,
Yeah.
and then he strongly recommended if you have limited time, straight away go to the last chapter, the future, the repeal of Malaysia. So given that right now most of the not most quite a number of people publishing their memoir, like Natim Paduka, and then Tan Sri Razak, Tan Sri Tommy Thomas, and then your father's news book is coming in 12th of December. So what is the main difference within a woman writer and man writer or male writer? Is that different?
Yes,
Or
there's a big difference, I think. Number one, those people, one, they're all male. Number two, none of them learned how to do creative writing.
they haven't go to the course?
No. And you learn a lot. You learn a lot about how to tell a story. So they're not interested in telling stories. They're interested in putting their points of view. Whereas I'm interested in telling a story that, that comes from a particular point of view. It's true, but it's told in a story-like way, and to me, that's what makes things more interesting. I mean, I read a lot of memoirs, and the ones that I find the best ones are always written by women,
Oh, really?
and certainly not by politicians or corporate figures. I get bored with.
But they have more history to share, more feeling, more eventful things.
Not necessarily. You think small people don't have eventful things in their lives happen? Are you kidding? Have you read Educated by Tara Westover? It's an incredible life to be brought up in a family that does not value education and to wind up with a PhD. How does that happen? And there's a wonderful book called Dadland by Keji Karu, who talks about her dad. Her dad winds up with dementia, but in his life, he was part of Force 136 in the war, and it's just so beautifully written. Those are the books I like. Some of the, except for, Barack Obama, I think has a way of talking and writing which is interesting, but not many people have that. Not many people at all. And so I don't find a lot of men are not interested in being personal, not interested in revealing their faults. My book talks about my weaknesses and talks about my flaws. I'm not there to boast. I did this, did that, did other. I talk about the times when I've been afraid, the times when I've felt insecure, and that sort of thing. And I think that's the difference between a man's book and a woman's book. Women are not afraid to reveal themselves, their authentic selves. Whereas men, I think,
More
I'm
defensive.
judging a lot of people. No, I'm judging a lot of people. They are interested in, like, this is what I want you to know about me, and this is the best side of me. And I haven't read Nazir's book, I must say. I haven't read it from start to finish, but the fact that he points out the last chapter,
Mhm.
because that's what he wants to do in the future, um, that tells me a lot about, I want to show you my best front. Whereas my book, I show you my weaknesses, my flaws, and things like that. Someone described it as, you're showing a lot of vulnerability. I say, yeah, that's a real person. That's a real human being.
Okay, so what do you think that is biggest contribution? Some some people say that he's quite how to say quite authoritarian in the way he rules the country. So I'm sure that you don't share the same opinion.
I think, look, okay, I'm not an apologist for my dad.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't. He can take care of himself, but I think that authoritarian is a very strong
Mm,
word. Have If you've ever been in a presentation with him,
mm,
I think people who've had to be in a meeting when he was PM and had to present
mm,
something, they will know that unless you're extremely well prepared with your arguments, um, and you're not going to impress him. So if he asks you a question that you don't know how to answer, then you're in big trouble.
mm,
I also experienced that. Um, so he is a strong personality. He does have strong views. But I don't think he's completely blocked off from hearing other people. But it does matter to him how you approach him. So if you approach him the wrong way, and I can tell this from family experience, then he's not going to listen to you. But I think if we look around, you can see what he's done for the country, and he's just interested in doing things for the country. So I don't think you can doubt. It may be a different approach from a
mm.
lot of people. I think circumstances change over the years, and you have to adjust. And I think sometimes he thinks that he has the formula and you shouldn't change the formula, that sort of thing. Um, so I think everybody needs to be humble, that they don't all have the answers. And it's easy to accuse someone, but when you as the
Mhm.
Pakistan government realized once they got in, that to rule a country is not easy at all. And some of them proved to be pretty amateurish at it. So uh, I think well, he's a strong personality for
Mhm.
sure. He's a very dominant
Mm.
personality. Um and
Some say alpha male.
he is an alpha male, which is very interesting
Mm.
because he's the youngest in the family.
Oh,
Youngest in the family, very rare to be alpha males, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Usually you're the
Yes,
eldest.
have to
Yeah.
take care of the
Yeah,
sibling.
no, he was the youngest
Mm,
and very pampered by his mother and his sisters. Which is why I think he is very he admires women who do well. He was married always to a career woman who has her own point of views. He's always promoted women. His chief of staff was a woman, that sort of thing. So I think he's a lot more complex figure than most people think. And people here are very love to give people labels. So one word labels, to everybody, which I think, everyone is multifaceted.
This is the coming question that I
I
would like
know,
to
I know.
ask.
It's
How would you describe your father in one word? Malay nationalist, visionary, dreamer, statesman, or nation builder? Or what are the most suitable words
I think
or
leader,
phrase or the phrase?
leader,
Leader.
leader. You can say good leader or bad leader,
Mm.
but a leader, because I think whatever it is, and even if you disagree, when he was in office, we knew what direction the country was going, right? Now we don't know. We're confused. It's here, there, everywhere. We have completely, you know, uncharismatic leaders. Sometimes you look and you think, why on earth are they there? Whatever. I mean, that you can't
Not
deny.
presentable.
Ah,
Not presentable. The leader. The leader
no.
without leadership, or
No, and whatever it is, he made a mark on the country. You could call it a good mark or a bad mark, but wherever you go in the world, people still, if you say you're from Malaysia, his is the name that comes up.
yeah.
So that must mean something. So I don't know lah. Now I think now a lot of people want to rewrite history also, right? So the first point of order is everything that Dr. M does is bad, which to me is reflects back on them rather than actually, what's happened.
Okay. So from your point of view, what is the most important thing your father have done for the non-Malay, or we say non-Muslim community in Malaysia?
What's the most important thing?
Yeah.
I think he's been very open to the non-Malay community. He's always said that this country cannot succeed without the collaboration of everyone. Especially Malays. As I said, our system is set up so that no one community can actually dominate. That even if you want to win elections, you can't just rely on one community. You need everybody. And yeah, I think that's what he's done. He's had, I think, very reasonable. I know people who've had private chats with him and found that he's very reasonable, very open about different communities, different religions, and things like that. That's the way he was brought up. That's the way he brought us up. But of course, he feels right like he has to work for his own people because he feels like in other countries, I think he looked at South Africa where the the indigenous people of the country were oppressed for so long, that sort of thing, and that's the sort of thing he doesn't want to see happen here, right? So yeah, he stands up for his own, and I think he's been disappointed with his own people most
Yeah.
of the time. And that's why he scolds them all the time, and of course they don't like it. Yeah, it's complicated.
Yes.
But I mean, aside from all these so-called political commentators and all that, when he was out of office for 15 years, I had all sorts of people coming to me telling me, please tell him to come back, please tell him to come back. And they were mostly not Malays. So I don't know. I think we live in a very complicated society where if you just read things on social media, you get one impression of the world. And if you go around and actually talk to people, you get a different impression of the world. So I don't know which is correct.
So, Datin Batoka, being born into a very powerful and prestigious family,
I
so
was not.
not
I told you my father
20,
became PM when I
24.
was 24
Oh.
years old. So I was not born into a very powerful family. Not at all.
But the general perception is that, so
But the general
yeah.
perception is wrong. This is what I'm trying to explain in the book. I mean, how many times do I have to say? I think people think I'm
Mm.
a lot younger than I am,
Yeah.
but I'm 64 years old. I'm the same age as the country. So my dad didn't become PM in 1957, so I was definitely not born into it.
So what do you hope people will get from this book?
The book is, like I said, not so much about him, but about me. It's what it's like to be in the family of a public figure, a public political figure. And you know, he makes the choice to go into politics. He makes the choice to stand for elections, and he gets into government and so on and so on. The family has no choice. We don't have a say. We just get dragged along into this and then have to deal with the impact of his decision. And what makes the difference, I think, between the way we, the family, particularly the children, respond to this situation that is not our own making, is the values that we are brought up in. We are never taught from young, even before he entered politics, because he was a doctor. And so he was a well known doctor in Alostar. We are not allowed to say, "Oh, I'm Dr. M's daughter," and that sort of thing. We're not allowed to say. I'm from the sort of generation where if people ask me, "Who are your parents?" I'm very shy to say. Nowadays I find young people, I ask them, do I know your parents? And they say, yes, I'm Tan Sri so and so son.
Oh.
I mean, to me, it's like a world of difference. But we were not taught like that. And so to me, I mean, how we respond to the situation that we are put in really depends on our upbringing, what we're taught as young people. And that's what I wanted to really talk about in the book. How it's difficult to be your own person, because like you say, public perception is you were born
Yeah.
into this powerful family. Well, I wasn't, and I had to deal with this sudden change. Banks, for instance, one day you are just a normal customer. The next day, because your father became the PM or something, the next day they think that you are going to be a money launderer.
Oh.
They change completely. They assume you're the same person. You have the same amount of money in your account, but the way they look at you suddenly changes. A lot of people don't realize this. So they think, wow, it's so great, you can be up there and all that, but it's not always great. It's not always great because people judge you every minute. you know if you're stupid, they say you're stupid. If you're smart, they waiting for you to
To
make
fall.
a mistake. It's like, it's terrible pressure.
That's the label that people like to give to the society.
Yeah, it's been, they judge things. So I'm hoping with this book that I talk a bit more about that. I'm telling a bit more about what it really is like, that the things you have to deal with every day, and that sort of thing, in a situation which you didn't choose. So how do you make your own choices? How do you assert your own identity? How do you become yourself, your true self, and not always having to, be something that the public wants?
Your daughter, Ineza, filmed a political documentary and from Malaysia. Is this another effort from your family to tell your side of story?
No.
Very
No.
straightforward answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because your question is already biased that way, right? No, if you read the book, it wasn't even my idea. It was my friend Diane's idea, because we thought at 92, my dad is standing for election. It's probably the last time he's going to stand for election. So it should be documented. It should be recorded. We had no idea about making a documentary at all. We just thought that we should film this. just for archival purposes.
Mhm.
And so it was her and me and a cameraman that we got, a camera crew that we got. And then because I got busy, because I got asked to go on the campaign trail and talk here, talk there. And our idea had been that we would interview him every day after the end of every day. And I couldn't do it. So I asked my daughter if she could. And my daughter was a film student in Australia. So she knows how to handle cameras. She knows how to, make, film things. And at first she didn't want to do it because she, like a lot of young people, were just shocked that a 92-year-old person was going to stand for election because they feel like, oh, what can you know about young people and all that. So I said to her, no, you just don't have to do anything. You're just taking my place because I can't do it. Can you just go and interview him? That's all. So that happened, and then it wound up because she has the technical skills and everything. She got more involved in it, and so she followed around. We wound up, we never expected Pakatan to win. We just wanted to record the whole thing. And at the end of it, we had something like, was it 900 or 9,000 hours of film? What do we do with it? And again, Diane said, let's make something out of it, because there's a story here. It's an incredible story. Whatever it is, it's an amazing story. How, it's really David versus Goliath, right? After 60 years, we managed to throw out this government. So it's a great story. And so they both, I mean, I was executive producer. That means I have to go and find sponsorship or find money or deal with the whatever other issues. And so they shaped it into the documentary that it was. But we did not start with that idea. And, it's the first documentary to be shown in Malaysian cinemas. Cinemas didn't want it at first. And they say, okay, we give you 4 days. But it went on for a month in some places, and people loved it. There were full houses, and it was wonderful, because it was so uplifting. And it's a story, it's a happy story because it's about impossible odds and then you win, right? Anywhere in the world, it's a great story. And so then we asked, and then it was shown in various film festivals around the world, also very good reception. And then so we asked Finas whether, can we submit this for the Oscars? And never submitted a documentary before. So we asked, we begged, please, can you consider us? And so finally they did decide to submit us because the country has to submit. And then that was it. Because when you submit a film for the Oscars, I mean, this year we submitted also quite a good film. That's not the end of it because then you have to work to promote and everything, get stories in the entertainment papers and all that. And we didn't have any support. We had to do it all ourselves. We had to have screenings in the US and we had to do it all ourselves, which was hard work. And well, we didn't get shortlisted, but it's a huge competition anyway. And we submitted for best movie, best documentary, uh, best soundtrack, best original soundtrack, and best song. And we didn't get any of it. But of course, it was the year that Parasite from South Korea won.
South Korea, yes.
So impossible, right? It really impossible. But I think the song should have gotten somewhere. We had a really lovely song with Yuna singing it. And yeah, it's too bad. But it was a great experience. I think everybody should go through the experience and understand what the real world, if Malaysia ever wants to make it in the movie industry, it's very good experience, and we have a lot of talented filmmakers.
So you have often talked about the erosion of Malay culture. So can you tell us why you feel so strongly about that? We move to another topic.
Well, I think of late, that we are among Malays, we are losing touch of our own culture, um, our arts and crafts. There are not many craftspeople. Many years ago, I think more than 20 years ago, my husband is a photographer. And he's Indonesian. He's a photographer, and he was taking photographs for a book called Crafts for Malaysia. And they would direct him to one place where somebody's waving baskets or someone's, and he said he goes there and he said there's only one person doing it in the whole village. In Indonesia, the whole village is doing it. So we are losing this, partly because we are developing and people want to go to the city. The young people want to go to the city. They're not interested in this hard work. But also in places like Kelantan, which is supposed to be the seed of Malay culture, there's so many restrictions on dance, on theater, the mat yung, and everything, the type of stories you can tell, that we're really losing it, and I really am impressed by people who are really doing the work of recording this for to so that it's it remains in our history. But the fact is, it's so rare. It's so rare that you can even see or experience any of this. So I find that really really sad. I think most kids won't know about this type of cultural history. And then there are other influences. Okay, we are, I think, because we are geographically where we are, we've always been influenced by all sorts of things,
Yeah.
because people have come and gone and come and gone. But I think we should also be aware of what our identity is supposed to be, and with all this so-called Islamization,
Yeah.
which people equate to being more Arab,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot of the way we dress, the way we speak nowadays. I go to some events and people start off with a lot of Arabic,
Yeah.
which, okay, I can understand the sort of a prayer for a good event, that's all that, but sometimes they go on and on and on in Arabic, and most of us don't understand, so we don't know what you're saying. Some people do the Malay translation after, okay, but some people don't. And to me, what if I stood up and I started speaking in French without translating? It's rude, right? It's rude. So to me, that lack of courtesy is also an example of how we are losing our culture. We're usually very courteous, we're very polite people, and to me, that's kind of rude. And as far as clothes are concerned, well, it moves, it changes. And I mean, I was grumbling one time because it was so hard to find any like kabaya or anything like that, because everywhere was just kaftans. Of course, kaftans are comfortable. But, are we forgetting our own traditional outfits? For instance, nowadays baju kurung, the skirt has pleats on one side and it's all you have a hook and a zip now. Whereas, when I was young, you had to learn how to pleat it yourself. I don't think anybody knows how to do that anymore.
The
now.
heritage has gone, is it?
Yeah, the heritage has gone, and I think
Is it the sorry to interrupt? Is it the Islamization and the Arabization is a trend to worry, or is it something that irreversible?
no, I think the trend when it comes to fashion, I don't think I'd be worried that much about it, because fashions will change, and I love the way our young women, they might wear a hijab, but it's like
Very fashionable.
very
Yeah.
hipster, and
Uh,
they're doing all sorts of interesting ways that they are wearing it, their clothes and all that. Um, but I think the thinking that we are not doing about things is more worrying. I don't think it matters how you dress; it's how you think. And it's really um, we are taking wholesale from other people, even though they come from environments very different from us. We live in a multicultural environment, so we are shaped differently. All our how we even speak. We can speak in 3 languages all in one sentence.
yeah.
That's normal for
Mm.
us. We don't even think about it. But in most countries, that's strange.
Mm.
And we are used to. I used to live in Japan 30 years ago, and every time I came back, I always like to say this. Every time I came back, I always feel like I went from a black and white movie to a color movie. Like
Why?
Malaysia is the color movie, because there everyone is the same, speaks the same, looks the same. Whereas here we are all sorts, and speak. You hear different languages. We are used to it. It's not a problem, and that does something to our brains. I think how Americans, if they hear a foreign language, like you've read of incidents like on a plane, they hear someone chanting or something in different language, they get worried, they're afraid, like what is this? Whereas we are not, because our brains are tuned to hearing different languages, and we don't interpret a different language as being hostile. But if you grow up in an environment where you only hear one language, anything that's different, you're going to get suspicious of. So I think that's our advantage, and we should be proud of that, and we should nurture that as much as possible. Unfortunately, I really think that we take the lead from the top, and if we have the type of leaders who are so narrow minded, who are so, I hate to say this, uneducated, then everyone else will become the same.
Is it because of the current scenario politics that where most of the Malay party compete each other in identity politics, and then Islam and the race and religion become a very powerful tools?
Yeah, unfortunately, is that and it's really silly. I have my organization, Sisters in Islam. We also have a global movement called Musawa, and what we do a lot of is that we try and show that the Muslim world is diverse. It's very diverse, and Muslims in different countries actually adapt to their own environments and do things according to their own situations. For instance, and Tunisia, for instance, banned polygamy in 1957. Morocco has a constitution which is very, very open and treats women well. In some countries, I think Turkey recognizes that marriage is between equals. So it's not like the man is superior, the husband is superior to the wife. So we try and show this, but in Malaysia, people think like ours is the best and ours is this is the ideal form of Islam. But the ideal form of Islam has to promote justice, has to promote equality, has to promote compassion and kindness. And if it doesn't do that, there's something wrong with it. There's something wrong with the interpretation that we are using. But it seems to serve some people's purposes, I guess. So yeah, the identity, I think, where I guess Malay equals Muslim
Yeah.
is to me, I think problematic if you interpret Muslim as being this very, very narrow thing. In fact, it's becoming so exclusive that most of us can't even belong to it, even if you're born Muslim. Like me, oh, Marina, she doesn't cover her head, not good enough.
Mhm.
So I cannot belong to this club, but who are you to say, actually? I saw a big billboard just now, which says saham untuk the afterlife, akhirat, saham
Ah,
akhirat. And I think they actually mean saham, like shares, but your saham is based on what good you do, how kind you are to people. That's what you collect to ensure your afterlife is good. But people seem to have forgotten that. I mean, how can people say that it's okay to be corrupt? It's Islamic to be corrupt. That's not possible. It's just not possible.
So, what impact do you believe Islamization has on the progress or advancement of a society?
I don't really like this Islamization because, again, which Islam are you talking about?
Hmm.
You're talking about a very narrow interpretation. And this narrow interpretation, like I said before, is how do you know it's correct? If it does not promote justice, if it does not promote the well-being of the country, it can't be correct. It cannot be correct. So if you are saying that interpretation is what is being used, then we're all in trouble. Muslim or non-Muslim, we're all in trouble. Because it's unkind, it's unjust, and I don't accept that. To me, Islam equals justice, and if it's unjust, it cannot be Islamic.
mm,
So I really worry about this term Islamization
mhm.
because Islam by itself is not bad. If Islamization means more justice, then it's a good thing. We should all welcome it. But if it means injustice, then it's something that we should be wary of and fight. We should push back against this interpretation and not accept. If we accept, when they say this is Islam but it promotes injustice, and we accept that definition, then we are just as much at fault. We have to push back and say, which one do you mean?
Islam is a universal religion, but towards this 10 or 20 years after 911, the definition or the worlds have Islamic phobia on that. So I don't know how we're going to explain this to non-Muslim, because some of conservative group have criticized your view, since you have always argued for moderate Islamic approach that recognize and defends women's right. So, what are your thoughts on this, and how do you feel about this conflicting viewpoint from the other side,
Which side you're
the
talking about? Is
conservative side?
the so-called conservative side. They are. I think they're really afraid because women have advanced so much over the years, over the decades, even over our 64 years of independence, um, women have become high achievers and all that. And all these people are just afraid of losing their positions. And therefore, they try and push back and say, you cannot be this, you have to stay home, you have to, you know, you cannot complain about this, that, or the other. It's a classic tactic, but you see this happening all over the world. Look at America
Mm,
now. I mean, there are so many conservatives there now that they're almost behind us. I mean, can you imagine a country that
mm.
does not give paid medical leave, does not give paid maternity leave? I keep thinking, how do they have babies then? You know, I
Yeah.
mean, on the one hand, they want to ban abortion. On the other hand, if you get pregnant, you cannot have maternity leave. That's crazy, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and so to me, it's they're all the same. The conservative here, the conservatives in America, they're all different religion everywhere in the world. Conservative in India, for instance, they're all pretty much the same. They all feel threatened. They're all mostly men. And what frightens them most of all are women becoming more advanced,
Being empowered.
being empowered. But to me, the only way the world is going to change is if women are in leadership positions. I saw a picture of the meeting, I think, is it in Vienna or Geneva, between the US and Iran, talking about nuclear disarmament. And I couldn't tell which side is which side because they're all men, they're all in suits, they all look the same. And to me, I think there's no hope. There's no hope there. You change all those people to women, then maybe there's chance. Because women are going to think about their families and their children. Do they want a nuclear bomb to drop on their families? No.
Yeah.
Not at all. But this negotiation, both sides, they are both nuclear armed countries. All they're talking about, are you going to manufacture more uranium or less? That's all.
Mm.
Whereas women, we're going to say, we can use that money for other things, better things. We can build hospitals, we can build schools. We can do things for our children. So to me, I'm sorry, but the biggest disaster is having so many men as world leaders.
But we cannot take away race and religion out of politics, given the context in Malaysia, like restriction sales on alcohol, the Timah whiskey thing, ban on 4D lottery outlet in Kedah. So, from your point of view, what is the option left with us?
Do not elect anyone from past. Because to me, every day they are showing how unsuitable they are to be leaders of this country because they have no idea about anything. I'll say that very strongly and they'll all come after me if they want to, but it's true. I mean, they're the people who are saying that it's okay, to be corrupt. And it's because, if it's for political purposes, what sort of nonsense is that? Where are their values? How were they brought up, these people? So, I think our people have to realize we do have a choice on who we put in office, who we elect as our leaders. And if we don't exercise that choice, if we are not more demanding of our leaders, then this is what we'll get. This is what. Don't forget, we are now ruled by a government we did not elect.
Mm.
We did not elect these people to rule us. I think nobody should forget that.
Yeah. But the fact is that they already in Putrajaya is have to wait another round of
By
GE.
illegitimate means. Okay, so yeah, I mean, all they're doing, all these people are doing, are making our people, voters, disillusioned with the political process, with the democratic process. And that's very bad. That's really very bad because does it mean the death of democracy? Are we just all going to give up? If we're going to give up, this is what we're going to get. We cannot give up. And that's why I'm very, very keen on young people because I think they give us hope. I love the Undi 18 people. I know a lot of these young people. They're amazing. And all we can do is to support them, and sustain them because it's going to be a long, hard fight. Nothing can be done overnight. 2018, it took us really 10 years, 20 years to get there. But, it's they have the energy, they have the stamina. All us oldies, we can just stand the back and just, give advice when asked and say, look, you have to determine your future. You have to make the choices, because these people are just, not. I mean,
Mm.
I'm embarrassed sometimes. I look at our government. I'm embarrassed.
So before last question, so what is your hope for the country?
Oh, that's the question.
Mm.
I mean,
Are you
I'm hopeful.
optimistic or pessimistic?
I am I think short-term pessimistic, long-term optimistic. Because like I said, I have a lot of hope in our young people, especially young women. There are lots of extremely bright young women whom I've met who have their values right. They are much more open, they are much more progressive. They don't make the differentiation between, race and religion and lifestyle and all that. They're very accepting, and we should really nurture them and back them up and tell them that, you're the ones who have to. Unfortunately, we messed it up. You have to put it right. So I guess I'm cautiously optimistic, but I really think that it will take a long time. I'm not sure I'll be around to see it even.
But our next generation
But our
will.
next generation and next generation, yeah. If you want to keep our young, bright young things here, then yes, we have to be hopeful about the future. Otherwise, they will leave. Because they are global citizens now. They can be anywhere in the world. They can work anywhere in the world nowadays. For
Alright.
those who are, okay, not everybody, um, but yeah, that that's what I hope and pray for. Otherwise we are doomed. We are doomed. We're going to be worse than a lot of the worst countries.
Okay, so thank you so much, Datin Paduga, for being here today. It is a very good sharing to our audience and listener. Okay.
Thank you and wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thanks.